Meryl Streep has broken her silence about the surprising end of her decades-long marriage, finally confirming what many suspected but few dared to believe. In a single statement, the legendary actress, famous for shrouding her personal life in near-total privacy, laid bare the reality that her once-admired union with sculptor Don Gummer had quietly unraveled. For years, fans and the media marveled at how her marriage remained untainted by the usual pitfalls of Hollywood fame. Now, the world is learning that beneath the calm exterior, they had been living apart on separate paths for far longer than anyone realized. From the outside, it had always seemed that Meryl and Don were the last bastion of unwavering commitment in an industry notorious for fleeting romances. No public spats, no swirling rumors of betrayal, just two artists carving out singular careers while raising 4 children. Over 4 decades, this seemingly rock-solid bond appeared unbreakable, defying the cynicism that usually greets celebrity relationships. But as this new chapter comes to light, observers are reevaluating every clue that might have hinted things were changing. How did two people whose partnership had been hailed as unshakable reach a point where they felt they could no longer remain together? Meryl has been revered not just for her acting prowess, capturing more Academy Award nominations than any other actor in history, but also for her near-mythic ability to keep her private affairs under wraps. Interviews have routinely touched on her transformative roles or her advocacy for women's rights and the environment, rarely prying into her marriage. On the rare occasions she spoke of Don, her tone would be affectionate, even reverent. Those fleeting comments served as glimpses, painting a picture of a steady, loving partnership that balanced out her high-octane Hollywood life. Yet cracks sometimes form not through cataclysmic conflicts, but through the slow passage of time, where two people drift into different corners of life. In Meryl's case, that drifting started soon after she became one of the most in-demand actresses on the planet, constantly traveling to film sets around the globe, immersing herself in demanding roles, and juggling an endless list of media obligations. Don, by contrast, devoted his days to sculpting, seeking creativity and tranquility away from prying eyes. While some couples might thrive on contrasting lifestyles, it appears that for them, these differences grew so pronounced that they could no longer bridge the gap. From the beginning, their relationship was bound up in strong emotion. In the late 1970s, Meryl suffered the devastating loss of her then-partner, John Cazale, a brilliant actor best known for the Godfather franchise. He died from cancer, leaving her reeling with grief. Don Gummer stepped in at a moment of intense vulnerability, offering her a place to stay when she couldn't bear to remain in the home she had shared with John. Within 6 months, they had married. It was a union many thought might be fleeting, given how quickly it happened and how emotionally raw she must have been. Yet it turned into a marriage that lasted decades and produced a family that stayed out of the usual Hollywood spotlight. Friends and colleagues often remarked on the tranquility Meryl seemed to exude whenever she spoke of Don. In interviews, she'd graciously thank him for tolerating her hectic schedule. As she hopped from drama to comedy, from stage work to film roles, always seeking the next challenge. Don, meanwhile, rarely granted interviews at all. He was known to quietly attend premieres or ceremonies when Meryl was honored, though he never sought attention. It was this understated bond that led many fans to assume the pair had cracked the code to a long-lasting show business marriage. What people didn't see was the growing dissonance between Meryl's world, public, frenetic, filled with passionate projects, and Don's more private universe. While Meryl was no stranger to diving into the emotional landscapes of her characters, she was typically reluctant to exhibit her own personal struggles. Even after winning multiple Oscars and Golden Globes, she always directed the focus outward, celebrating her co-stars, her directors, and the causes she supported. It's precisely because of that reserve that the revelation of her separation lands with such force. When the news eventually surfaced that they had not just hit a rough patch, but had chosen to live apart for an extended period, the silence around it was startling. Many in the industry have tried to parse the timeline. At what point did they decide that living as partners under the same roof no longer worked? Some trace it back 6 or 7 years, spotting less frequent appearances of Don at events. Others recall him attending for major milestones only. the largest awards ceremonies, or the children's significant gatherings. Still, as recently as 2018, they were photographed side by side at the Academy Awards, looking perfectly at ease. That single image was enough to keep up the illusion of unity for the public, even if privately they were charting separate courses. According to Meryl, the impetus to speak out now was in part to address growing speculation. Journalists had begun to ask more pointed questions about Don's repeated absences from red carpets, wondering aloud whether he had health issues or if there was any behind-the-scenes turmoil. Rather than letting rumors spiral, she decided to set the record straight. Doing so, she says, felt strangely liberating. She was finally able to acknowledge that her life, as perfect as it might have seemed, had changed drastically. She frames it less as a scandal and more as a natural evolution. Two people who found they thrived in different modes of existence. What emerges clearly is that theirs is not a story of betrayal or vicious arguments, but one of drifting priorities. Meryl's professional drive remained all-consuming, whereas Don discovered he functioned best in his more cloistered studio environment, sculpting in peace. For years, they accepted these differences, proud of each other's successes. Over time, though, those separate spheres became less about independence and more about living parallel lives. By the moment they recognized it fully, there was no single fix that could bring them back together. The couple's 4 children have each navigated careers that echo their parents' creative spirits. Henry Wolf Gummer dove into music, forging his own indie path. Mamie and Grace took up acting, each making a name for themselves in television and film. Louisa explored acting and modeling, eventually capturing roles that showcased her own flair for performance. Meryl and Don, by all accounts, supported these endeavors wholeheartedly. Now, as the truth of their separation is public, their children have been quick to stand by both parents. None appear to resent the choice to separate, likely because they've been aware of it for quite some time. Industry observers find parallels between Meryl's approach and that of other celebrities who lived separately for years before making an announcement. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, for instance, stunned fans when it emerged they had been living apart, despite maintaining a public facade of togetherness. For Meryl, the impetus to confirm the news was partly a means of preventing the situation from mutating into lurid rumors or half-truths. She clarifies that the ongoing divorce process is calm, friendly, and free from any messy legal showdowns. In her view, it's a chapter that is concluding naturally, not imploding spectacularly. Still, the shock for fans comes from the fact that Meryl had always been regarded as a figure who balanced success and home life flawlessly. She won awards left and right, enthralled audiences with her chameleon-like ability to inhabit roles, and yet never seemed to fall prey to the personal strife that so often mars the careers of A-listers. According to her, that assumption of perfection was never something she intended to project. Rather, she felt that keeping her personal world private was the healthiest route for herself and her family. It was less about trying to look perfect and more about preserving a space where they could exist without constant scrutiny. When she speaks of Don now, it's with warmth and gratitude. She is careful to note that he was a pillar of support for decades, lifting her up through the whirlwind of her stardom. She credits him for helping her remain grounded and for nurturing their children with an unwavering presence. Yet she acknowledges that they reached a stage where the romantic spark and the sense of shared purpose simply waned. They realized they were better as individuals than as a married couple, though they remained connected by family ties and mutual respect. The question that looms is why they waited so long to put the final stamp on the divorce. Observers note that in Hollywood, many couples drag out legal proceedings because of complicated finances or child custody issues. In Meryl and Don's case, the children are grown and each spouse has substantial assets. One theory is that neither felt an urgent need to formalize anything. The practical aspects of separation were already in place, so they simply carried on. Another theory is that Meryl particularly disliked the spectacle of a public divorce. Filing paperwork in Los Angeles courts can often become tabloid fodder, something she's avoided throughout her entire career. Perhaps there was also a hope, at some point, that they might reconcile. While neither Meryl nor Don has explicitly said this, It's not uncommon for longtime couples to try living apart for a time to see if distance can rekindle appreciation. If that experiment took place here, it appears it wasn't enough to bring them back into one household. Once they became certain the separation was permanent, they were confronted with the decision of whether to remain legally married or end it officially. Meryl's explanation is that finalizing the divorce now is simply the natural next step, rather than an event fueled by bitterness or vendettas. Her fans, by and large, have responded with sadness, but also a flood of support. Many remark that her emphasis on respect and amicable resolution is rare in an environment where headlines often scream about explosive breakups. While some still struggle with the idea that a 40-year partnership could dissolve so quietly, others see it as a testament to the reality that relationships evolve and sometimes outgrow their original form. Meryl has said that despite the sadness, she feels a sense of relief in acknowledging the situation publicly, no longer needing to maintain an image that doesn't match her life. One might wonder how this shift affects her approach to her film career. She has never shown signs of slowing down, tackling comedic roles, dramas, musicals, and even television miniseries in recent years. Her performances remain lauded, and she continues to champion philanthropic causes. This new stage in which she is legally ending a marriage that was already finished in practice may afford her a different kind of freedom or perspective. Close friends speculate that Meryl's creative energy could intensify, unburdened by the hidden strain of keeping a major life transition under wraps. Don, for his part, remains devoted to sculpture, rumored to be exploring new mediums, though he seldom talks about his personal life. The broader conversation surrounding Meryl's divorce also touches on what it means for fans to see someone they revere as an icon navigate so human an experience. Unlike the sensational divorces that revolve around scandal, betrayal, or endless court battles, this scenario underscores a quieter truth. Sometimes two people grow in directions that no longer align. It's a sobering reminder that even for an artist considered peerless in talent and beloved by the public, real life does not come with guaranteed happy endings. It also reveals that privacy, while fiercely guarded, cannot entirely conceal the natural ebbs and flows of a relationship. In retrospect, some watchers look back at Meryl's award speeches or interviews, searching for subtle hints. They note that she's often praised Don for putting up with her schedule, her near-perfectionist work ethic, and the demands of publicity. Might those comments have been coded acknowledgments that they were both feeling the toll? If so, her fans largely missed the signals. Still, the lack of a large, dramatic fallout suggests that the love they shared remains intact in a platonic or familial sense, just not one that can sustain a marriage. For many supporters, that detail offers comfort. Some relationships do not fail in fire and fury, but gently set themselves down when the time is right. Asked why she's breaking her silence at this moment, Meryl has indicated that it simply felt like the healthiest, most authentic step. She spent a lifetime dodging intrusive questions and deflecting personal inquiries. With the separation now public knowledge, continuing to feign unity or dodge questions would only stoke more invasive speculation. By plainly stating the facts, yes, they are divorcing, yes, they have been separated for a long time, she's taken control of a story that might otherwise spiral into rumor. Her voice has always been measured, from her earliest interviews to her acceptance speeches, and this moment is no exception. She addresses it succinctly, then pivots to praising Don for the years they spent together and focusing on her future projects and philanthropic endeavors. Their divorce, as the documents reportedly show, is expected to finalize with minimal dispute. Meryl's storied career will continue. Don will keep sculpting. Their children will remain the living legacy of a relationship that once seemed picture-perfect. If there is a lesson here, it's that relationships, even the ones the world romanticizes, are nuanced and sometimes cannot be salvaged by the mere presence of love and respect. Meryl has indicated that neither she nor Don regrets the decades they spent together. Rather, they cherish those memories and experiences and accept that life has carried them to a crossroads where each must continue down a separate path. For an actress so adept at portraying the emotions of fictional characters, Meryl has always been circumspect about revealing her own. Now that she's given the public a glimpse into this personal milestone, it's clear she remains the composed, gracious figure the world has come to admire. As she embarks on the next chapter, audiences worldwide will undoubtedly rally behind her, curious to see if this shift in her personal life resonates in her future roles. She's had the rare freedom to keep that private sphere intact for decades, but this moment of openness shows that even she is not immune to the transformations that can unfold in any long-term relationship. In a profession where scandal often generates the most headlines, Meryl's measured revelation stands out for its simplicity. There's no endless parade of court filings, no tabloid exclusives, or tearful talk show confessions. Instead, she has chosen to speak in a quiet tone, in line with her long-standing preference for minimal fanfare when it comes to family matters. There's a sense of dignity in her approach, as though she and Don have recognized that the quiet dissolution of a marriage doesn't erase its history or the love that once bound them together. She might never disclose every detail, and that's consistent with how she's always operated, revealing only as much as she deems necessary. This choice is simultaneously a gift to the public, clarifying what actually happened, and a protective measure for everyone involved. While some fans yearn for full transparency, most respect the decision of a star who has earned the right to define her own boundaries. The wave of support on social media shows that compassion outweighs any sense of betrayal or disappointment. If anything, people are simply relieved to know the truth after years of unanswered speculation. Looking back on her remarkable journey, from a young actress mourning an unimaginable loss, to a newlywed forging a future with Don, to the global superstar she is now, one sees a life marked by unparalleled artistic achievement and carefully guarded personal transitions. This divorce is neither the beginning nor the end of her story, but a pivotal moment that unites the private with the public. It adds dimension to a woman so often revered as a near-flawless icon, reminding us that she, too, grapples with life's complexities. That might be the most relatable chapter of her story yet, an acknowledgement that even legendary figures must navigate heartbreak and change, sometimes more quietly than the world expects. Thank you for joining in this glimpse behind the curtain of Meryl Streep's personal journey. She is, and likely will remain, an artist of immense depth and range, undiminished by a life event that many would see as purely negative. Instead, it illuminates the compassion, strength, and honesty that have always underscored her approach to life and work. As she moves forward from this revelation, the understanding between her and her fans deepens, an acknowledgement that she's more than an iconic performer. She's human, shaped by both triumphs and heartbreaks. For nearly half a century, Meryl Streep and Don Gummer shared a life that many believed could never falter. Now, as she confirms their divorce, she proves that no union is immune to transformation. They depart from the marriage with dignity, mutual respect, and enduring memories, reminding us that life's greatest grace often lies in knowing when to let go. For more of the latest news, check out this video.